A medium-rank world fruit was undoubtedly most suitable for a fifth-stage heaven splitter. After consuming it and refining its medicinal effects, one could directly advance to the sixth stage. A fourth-stage and third-stage heaven splitter could also be consumed, but the benefits would be much smaller. As for a sixth-stage heaven splitter, even consuming it would have no effect. This is something you obtained from the land of ancients? Yuhi asked in surprise. She was well aware of what Yang Kai had obtained in the Great Void Realm, but she had never heard of Yang Kai obtaining a world fruit. The only possibility was that he had obtained it from the land of ancients. Yang Kai nodded. Young master, this thing is too precious. I can't accept it. Yuhi pushed the world fruit back. Yang Kai said, if I tell you to use it, then just use it. I have plenty of these things on hand. Liar. Yuhi curled her lips. Although I've never seen a world fruit before, I know that everyone only has one chance to obtain a world fruit from the world fruit tree. Why are there so many? As she spoke, Yuhi stared at Yang Kai's palm in surprise. There were several more world fruits there. Yang Kai chuckled. Do you believe me now? Your cultivation will also be helpful to the land of void. Unfortunately, most of the world fruits I have are low rank and not very valuable. If they were all medium rank, I would be able to produce a batch of medium-rank heaven splitters. Yuhi asked curiously, how can low-rank world fruits be worthless? Yang Kai said, low-rank heaven splitters can only help a cultivator advance to the third-stage heaven splitters. How valuable is that? Yuhi laughed. Young master, you're wrong to think that way. Low-rank world fruits can indeed only help a cultivator advance to the third-stage heaven splitters, but they can increase his growth limit. This kind of good thing can't be bought with money. What do you mean? Yang Kai raised his eyebrows. Yuhi raised the medium-rank world fruit in her hand and said, take me as an example. I've reached the fifth stage heaven splitters, so my limit will be the seventh stage. If I take too many heaven splitters, they won't have any effect on me. However, if I take this world fruit, I can advance to the sixth stage, and my limit will be the eighth stage. You can calculate it like that? Yang Kai was surprised. Low-rank world fruits can help a low-rank heaven splitters advance by a single stage. That alone isn't very valuable, but increasing the limit by a single stage is something that many people dream of. So that's how it is. Yang Kai suddenly understood. It turned out that he had underestimated the value of low-rank world fruits all this time. He had thought that the dozen or so fruits in his hand were of little value. But now it seemed that those dozen or so fruits were also treasures. This made him overjoyed. He felt like he had just picked up a large sum of money. Clutching the world fruit in her hand, Yuhi pursed her lips and said, I'll accept this fruit. Thank you, young master. She hadn't known that Yang Kai had even more world fruits, so she couldn't bear to take such a precious thing. Now that she knew, she didn't refuse. Just as Yang Kai had said, her advancement to the sixth stage would bring great benefits to the entire void. She herself had been accumulating heaven splitters for hundreds of years. Once she advanced to the sixth stage, this accumulation would settle down again. At that time, she wouldn't be far from reaching the seventh stage. The seventh stage was a high-rank heaven splitters. After arranging everything, Yang Kai called Lu Shui and Guizian over and soared into the sky. Outside the void, Lu Shui took out a pinwheel-shaped artifact. The three of them walked into it. Under Lu Shui's control, the pinwheel-shaped artifact turned into a streak of light and swept through the void. The 3,000 realms were vast. Large territory after territory bordered each other. Yang Kai actually didn't know where the star boundary was. He had bought a universe map in the star market and had been studying the location of the star boundary since then. Although he couldn't be sure, there were 3 possible places. He could only search one place at a time. Yang Kai secretly prayed that one of the 3 places was correct. If all 3 were wrong, then he really didn't know what to do. Calculating the distance, the star boundary shouldn't be too far from the void. Not long after he and Zhang Rua she came out of the star boundary, they encountered a 1,000-jointed insect. After being swallowed by the 1,000-jointed insect, the 2 of them separated. Yang Kai fell into a large territory, and it was there that he was lured into entering the Qiqiao land by Fire Spirit Land's venerable Duan Hai. He led the way in the pinwheel-shaped artifact while Lu Shui sped along. Passing through one large territory after another, they encountered some dangers along the way. They were chased and intercepted by some star beasts. The three of them avoided them if they could, but if they couldn't, they could only fight. After 2 to 3 months, the three of them entered a large territory. Lu Shui's voice came. "Master, we've arrived." This large territory was the first destination of Yang Kai's trip. Hearing this, Yang Kai immediately walked out of the pinwheel-shaped artifact and looked around expectantly. He didn't find anything. He wasn't discouraged. After all, a large territory was too vast. The star boundary might be hidden in some corner of this large territory, so it was normal that he couldn't find it. Moreover, he came from the star boundary and was recognized by the star boundary as one of the great emperors of the void. If the star boundary was really in this large territory, as long as the distance between them wasn't too far, they should be able to sense each other. Ordering Lu Shui to continue searching in this large territory, Yang Kai kept perceiving his surroundings. After a month, Yang Kai sighed. "Let's go to the next place." The star boundary wasn't in this large territory. In this 1 month, he had practically run all over this large territory, but he didn't find anything. Lu Shui nodded and followed Yang Kai's directions to the next destination. Time passed by quickly. More than 10 days later, somewhere in the void, the dust of a great battle fell to the ground. Lu Shui panted, her chest rising and falling. There was a huge wound on Guizian's waist that almost cut him in half. Although Yang Kai looked unharmed, his face was pale. He coughed lightly, and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Wandering in the void, they would encounter all kinds of dangers from time to time. This time, the three of them were really unlucky. They encountered a group of more than 10 star flame foals. For some reason, this group of star beasts chased after the three of them. Lu Shui's artifact was also being repaired, but it would take at least half a month to get it back. Although Yang Kai was anxious to return to the star boundary, it was useless to be anxious in this situation. So he simply calmed down and waited. Since he had come to this universal palace, Yang Kai naturally wanted to leave his brand behind. Immediately, Yang Kai led Guizian and Lu Shui out of the inn and towards the central spirit array. If a cultivator wanted to leave their brand behind in the universal palace, they would have to spend 10,000 heaven-opening pills. This price was universal across the 3,000 worlds, neither more nor less. Although 10,000 heaven-opening pills was not a small amount, it could save lives in certain situations. Therefore, as long as a cultivator had some financial resources, they would not be stingy in this regard. However, it was impossible for every cultivator to leave their brand behind in only one universal palace. Every universal palace would cost 10,000 heaven-opening pills, so the cost was not small. Yang Kai had spent at least 1,000,000 heaven-opening pills on the universal palace so far. In other words, he had left his brand behind in at least 100 different universal palaces. In fact, he was still very interested in the universal palace. After all, it involved the space principles and could allow him to teleport over long distances. Although he could also teleport, the distance he could cover was far inferior to the universe escape technique. In any large territory, as long as there was a universal palace, the universe escape technique could respond to it from a distance. This was something his teleportation could not compare to, and even the space spirit bead was inferior. The space spirit bead's sensing range was also limited. Yang Kai had a premonition that if he could comprehend the mysteries of the universal palace, then his attainments in the space principles would definitely rise by a large margin. However, there were pros and cons. Although the universe escape technique was very mysterious and could be cultivated by anyone, it required some time to use. Yang Kai had seen a 7th stage heaven-opening cultivator use the universe escape technique with his own eyes. It was the boss behind the first inn. Even someone as strong as this person needed to spend several breaths of time to use it successfully. And in a life or death crisis, who would give you so much time to escape? Time was one thing, and pressure was another. The further one was from the universal palace, the greater the pressure one would feel when using the universe escape technique. If one exceeded one's limit, even if they succeeded in using it, there was a possibility that they would suddenly die during the teleportation process. This was not unprecedented. Many cultivators had no choice but to use the universe escape technique in times of crisis. Although they escaped the calamity in front of them, they would be teleported to the Universal Palace as a tattered corpse. However, even though there were all sorts of drawbacks, the cosmic escape technique was still popularized in the entire trichiliocosm. It was a secret technique that many cultivators placed high hopes on to travel and escape. After spending 20,000 heaven-opening pills, Yang Kai and Guizian left their own brand in the Universal Palace in turn. After leaving the Universal Palace, they were not in a hurry to return to the inn. Since they had nothing to do, Yang Kai led the two of them around. It was not the first time Yang Kai had come to the Universal Palace, but it was the first time he had come to this place. Unlike the Star Market, there were not many shops here, and the goods were not complete. Moreover, the prices were generally high. Passing by a jewelry store, Yang Kai's heart skipped a beat, and he walked in. Returning to the Star Boundary this time, he could not return empty-handed. Forget about the others, he had to bring back some gifts for his wives and parents. After a little calculation, Yang Kai saw Su Yan, Xia Ningchang, Shanqing Luo, Shui Yu, Yu Rumeng, his parents, and his little sister Yang Shui. There were quite a few people. And there was also Ji Yao. In addition, there was also Mo Xiaoqi, Lin Yun and the others. Naturally, the jewelry store did not sell simple pieces of jewelry. Each piece of jewelry was an artifact with a wide variety of functions. Although the price was a little higher, Yang Kai did not lack heaven-opening pills, so he did not care too much. The 9 Heavens Spirit Array cost a lot, and he was willing to pay for it. So what was a trivial artifact worth? A young girl dressed as a maidservant walked over with a sweet smile on her face, and a faint fragrance wafting from her body, giving one a good impression of her. The young girl's cultivation was not high, only in the Emperor realm, but having been here all year round, she could see that Yang Kai was extraordinary at a glance, so her attitude was naturally cordial. Yang Kai walked in front of the counter and looked around while the young girl softly introduced one item after another in great detail. Soon, Yang Kai took a fancy to a phoenix hairpin, and Su Yan's face involuntarily appeared in his mind. This phoenix hairpin was luxurious and should suit her temperament perfectly, and it also happened to be a defensive artifact. Su Yan and the others' cultivations were not high enough, so even if they had offensive artifacts, they could not display too much power, but defensive artifacts could sometimes protect them. Yang Kai planned to buy a defensive artifact for each of them. Reaching out to grab the phoenix hairpin, Yang Kai did not expect that a big hand would reach out from the side and grab the phoenix hairpin first. Yang Kai turned his head and saw a thin middle-aged man with a gloomy face looking at him. As their eyes met, the man smiled at Yang Kai and nodded. "Has little brother also taken a fancy to this thing?" Yang Kai smiled and said, "Indeed," the middle-aged man said. "What a coincidence. This king has also taken a fancy to this thing. Would little brother be willing to part with it? It's in your hands, you got it first, so it's yours. There's no need to part with it," Yang Kai said indifferently. "Many thanks," the middle-aged man laughed. "Little brother is a forthright person. How should I address you? We've just met by chance, why bother asking?" Yang Kai slowly shook his head and motioned to the maidservant to continue leading the way. The maidservant seemed to be annoyed that this inexplicable middle-aged man had ruined Yang Kai's shopping mood, so she became even more attentive to serving him. Soon, Yang Kai bought a lot of jewelry, causing the smile on the maidservant's face to become even brighter. After paying the bill, Yang Kai put everything into his space ring and led Lu Shui and Guizian out of the shop, only to see a man in front of him smiling at him. It was the man who had snatched the phoenix hairpin from him. Yang Kai looked at him in surprise and asked, "Is this sir waiting for me?" The middle-aged man nodded. "Indeed. What is the matter?" Yang Kai asked curiously. The man said, "This king feels very apologetic for snatching one of your jewelry, so I would like to set up a banquet to apologize to little brother. I wonder if little brother would accept." Yang Kai laughed and shook his head. "Sir is too serious. That phoenix hairpin was obtained by you first, so it's naturally yours. As for the banquet, there's no need. I have other important matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave now." Saying so, he cupped his fists and led Lu Shui and Guizian away. Seeing Yang Kai refuse, the middle-aged man didn't insist, and simply watched him leave with a smile. A moment later, Yang Kai returned to the inn and entered his room. Lu Shui said, "Master, I'm afraid that man doesn't have good intentions." Guizian nodded. "I feel the same way. This man's face is filled with malice. It's said that one's appearance is born from one's heart, so I'm afraid he's not a good person." Yang Kai asked, "Do you know that man?" Both of them shook their heads, indicating that they had never seen him before. Chapter 4161. The universe was vast and boundless, and there were countless cultivators. Lu Shui had traveled extensively for many years, and although she was quite knowledgeable, how could she recognize someone she had never met before? Guizian was even more so. He was only a second-stage heaven splitter, so his knowledge was limited. "But master, that person is at least a fifth-stage heaven splitter," Lu Shui said. Although the middle-aged man did not release any aura, making it impossible to accurately judge his cultivation, Lu Shui still felt some pressure in front of him. Lu Shui herself was a fourth-stage heaven splitter, so someone who could make her feel pressure was at least a fifth-stage heaven splitter. Yang Kai nodded solemnly. With Lu Shui and Guizian's strength, it was impossible to contend with a fifth-stage heaven splitter. If this person really wanted to harm them, it would be quite troublesome. And this was only the most conservative estimate. If this person was a sixth-stage heaven splitter, it would be even more troublesome. Although the chances aren't high, we can't not guard against this. Yang Kai pondered for a moment before quietly sending a message to Lu Shui and Guizian. The two immediately nodded and left. Half a month later, Lu Shui retrieved her windmill artifact, but she was not in a hurry to set off. After another 2 months, the three of them left the inn and set off. A few days later, a huge territory gate appeared in front of them, and the windmill rushed in and soon disappeared. Less than an hour after Yang Kai's group of 3 entered the territory gate, a stream of light suddenly flew over from the distance and landed in front of the territory gate. This person was the middle-aged man with a gloomy expression that Yang Kai had occasionally seen in the Universal Temple. Staring at the territory gate, the middle-aged man muttered to himself, "Did you go in? Humph. You won't be able to escape from this king's palm." Saying so, he plunged into the territory gate, his world force fluctuating and turning into a powerful barrier to resist the pressure of the territory gate. Passing through the territory gate was risky. Generally speaking, only those who had reached the mid-grade of Split the Heavens could pass through it with their physical body, without the help of any external objects. Below the mid-grade of Split the Heavens, if one didn't use any secret treasures or secret arts, it was very likely that they would be crushed to death. The pressure in the territory gate was terrifying. However, even though the middle-aged man had a fifth-stage heaven splitter cultivation base, when passing through the territory gate, his soul was shaken, and he felt slightly dizzy. He had experienced this kind of situation countless times, so he didn't panic. In order to avoid alerting the enemy, he didn't use any artifacts. Soon, the middle-aged man's vision blurred, and he knew he had arrived at another large territory. However, before he could stabilize himself, a sword light suddenly slashed at him from the side. The middle-aged man turned pale with fright. In a split second, he realized that he had been ambushed, and the person who had attacked him was not inferior to him in terms of cultivation. Who would ambush him here? The middle-aged man didn't have time to think about it and hurriedly retreated, but the sword light was like a maggot that stuck to his bones. Normally, with his background, it wouldn't be a problem for him to resist such an attack. After all, his strength wasn't weak, but the moment he passed through the territory gate, his soul and Dao Seal were both shaken, reducing his strength by at least 30%. The sword light directly tore through the protective barrier around his body and slashed at him. His clothes were torn and blood splashed as a foot-long wound immediately appeared on the middle-aged man's chest. His flesh was torn and his bones were exposed. There was still a lingering fear in his heart. If he hadn't reacted quickly and taken the opportunity to retreat and delay for a while, allowing him to display a defensive secret technique, this sword light would have taken half his life. Even so, at this moment he was feeling extremely uncomfortable. The wound was filled with sword intent, and he had to divert his attention to suppress it to prevent it from worsening. At this moment, another figure appeared from the side, holding a giant shield covered in dragon patterns, and slammed into the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man was caught off guard, and was knocked back, a tremendous force sweeping across his body, causing him to tumble and spit out a mouthful of blood. The sword light flashed again, turning into a rain of swords that covered the sky and covered him, each one threatening to take his life. However, after a while, the middle-aged man somewhat recovered, and with a roar, he raised his hand and summoned a shovel-like artifact. Urging his world force, he shoveled left and right, shattering the sword light. In the end, he was still a veteran 5th Order Heaven Splitter. Although he had suffered a big loss from this sneak attack, after stabilizing his footing, he immediately displayed his powerful background. The other person holding the giant shield covered in dragon patterns attacked again, raising his shield high and smashing it down fiercely. The middle-aged man flew into a rage. A trivial 3rd Order dares act presumptuously in front of this king. Although he didn't see who had attacked him, at this moment, under his divine sense, he could perceive that he was fighting a 5th Order and a 3rd Order Heaven Splitter. The 5th Order Heaven Splitter had the same cultivation as him, causing him to be wary, but this 3rd Order Heaven Splitter also dared to stroke the tiger's whiskers, causing him to be furious. He raised his hand and clenched it in the air. A long whip-like artifact appeared in his hand. The sound of a river surging could be heard from the whip. The power of water was abundant. This artifact was refined from a large river. The Black River whip lashed through the air and smashed into the giant shield. The giant shield groaned as it couldn't bear the weight. Cracks immediately appeared on its surface, and the owner of the giant shield was sent flying like a ragged sack. His body kept tumbling in the void as blood flowed out of his mouth. A 3rd Order Heaven Splitter against a 5th Order Heaven Splitter was just too difficult. If it weren't for the giant shield itself being a good defensive artifact, this blow would have killed him on the spot. At this moment, although he wasn't in any danger of losing his life under the enemy's attack, his Dao seal was constantly vibrating, and he had temporarily lost the ability to fight. However, his sacrifice was not in vain. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the shattered sword light once again bloomed with a strange brilliance, leaving behind a series of sword scars on the middle-aged man's body. Blood splashed out as the middle-aged man panicked. One wrong step had led to many wrong steps. He had been sneak attacked while crossing through territory, causing him to completely lose the initiative and fall into a disadvantageous position. Who was it that had actually ambushed him here? Fresh blood flowed down from his forehead, blurring his vision. The middle-aged man looked around, and soon saw a figure standing not far away, quietly watching. His eyes couldn't help shrinking as he cried out, "It's you!" This person was actually Yang Kai. Yang Kai stood there calmly, the corners of his mouth rising slightly as he revealed a sarcastic smile. "Black River, this king has been waiting for you for a long time." The middle-aged man saw Yang Kai call out his name, and was even more shocked and angered. "How do you know this king's origins?" Yang Kai sneered. "It's not like you don't know anyone in World Temple. It's not like they don't know you." After returning from the jewelry store that day, Yang Kai had asked Lu Shui and Guozian to inquire about him. Both of them were experienced cultivators, so it was not difficult for them to obtain some information without batting an eyelid. The truth they obtained stunned Yang Kai. The guy who wanted to set up a banquet and apologize was actually Heavenly Monarch Black River. Yang Kai had never seen or heard of Heavenly Monarch Black River before, but the name Black River made him vigilant. If he was not mistaken, there might be some grievances between him and Heavenly Monarch Black River, and the source of this grievance was Fong Tai, whom he met in the 7 Openings Earth Fire Spirit Land. Fong Tai was a servant in the Fire Spirit Land, and had been lured in by Duan Hai together with Yang Kai. This guy claimed to be from Black River boundary, and had a token left to him by his ancestors. He had escaped the shackles of World Temple and came to the 3,000 worlds, so he naturally wanted to rely on the token to find his family's elders and obtain their protection. However, he had coincidentally entered the 7 Openings Earth and was trapped inside, unable to escape. Duan Hai had obviously heard of Heavenly Monarch Black River's name. He had lured a descendant of the Heavenly Monarch to become a servant. If news of this spread, Heavenly Monarch Black River would definitely not let him go. In order to avoid future troubles, he planned to let Fong Tai escape from the 7 Openings Earth, and then ordered Yang Kai to chase after him. Yang Kai still remembered that there were 2 lower-rank heaven splitters accompanying him at that time. They found traces of Fong Tai in a Qingquan world, and Yang Kai fought him one-on-one, killing him with his spear. It was also at that time that Yang Kai encountered Su Huang, which led to the chaos in the 7 Openings Earth. Su Huang was a 5th-rank heaven splitter. When Yang Kai killed Fong Tai, he was hiding at the side and saw everything clearly. He sensed some inside information and told Yang Kai that there was a restriction in Fong Tai's body. Whoever killed him would leave behind a hidden brand. Unless Yang Kai advanced to Heaven Splitter, this brand could not be removed. The biggest use of this brand was to identify the murderer. If he encountered the owner of this brand in the future, he would be immediately detected. All this time, Yang Kai had not taken this matter to heart. After all, the universe was so big. How could he coincidentally encounter the owner of this brand? But who would have thought that things would be so coincidental? When Yang Kai learned of Heavenly Monarch Black River's name, he immediately reacted. Fong Tai came from the Black River realm, and that guy was Heavenly Monarch Black River. Chapter 4162. Heavenly Monarch Black River was only at the 5th rank, while that woman's cultivation was no different from his. Furthermore, he was ambushed, so he was naturally at a disadvantage. This junior was so cunning that she actually had her subordinates conceal their auras and trap him. Heavenly Monarch Black River was so depressed that he was about to vomit blood. He had thought that Lu Shui and Guozian had used some sort of secret technique to restrain their auras, but things weren't as he had imagined. 2 months ago, Lu Shui had truly been a 4th-stage heaven opening cultivator, and Guozian had truly been a 2nd-stage heaven opening cultivator. The reason for such obvious changes in such a short period of time was all because of the world fruit. Lu Shui and Guozian's intelligence on Heavenly Monarch Black River gave Yang Kai a headache. Although the difference between the 5th rank and the 4th rank was only 1 rank, the difference in true battle prowess was like heaven and earth. Lu Shui was completely unable to fight against Heavenly Monarch Black River. Yang Kai could not hide in the Universal Palace forever. If he wanted to solve this problem, he had to let Lu Shui increase her own grade. However, advancing to the heaven opening realm was extremely difficult. It usually required a long period of accumulation and consolidation. How could Yang Kai afford to wait? Fortunately, he had the world fruit. Of the 3 mid-rank world fruits, he had given 1 to Yuhi before leaving, so he still had 2 left. This was a matter of life and death, so Yang Kai could not care less. He immediately took out another one and gave it to Lu Shui to refine. Guozian also obtained a low-rank world fruit. The 2 months spent in the Universal Palace was the time that Lu Shui and Guozian spent refining the world fruit. The world fruit was indeed a legendary existence. With the help of this divine object, the 2 of them advanced, resulting in the current situation. However, although Lu Shui had advanced to the 5th rank, she was definitely not Black River's match in a one-on-one battle. After all, Lu Shui had just advanced, so her foundation was not stable. She still needed a long time to consolidate her strength before she could truly unleash her full strength. On the other hand, Black River was a veteran 5th rank. Whether it was the foundation of the little universe in his body or the world force in his body, he was not something Lu Shui, a newcomer, could compare to. There was a clear difference in strength between heaven-opening realm cultivators of the same rank. However, Lu Shui still had the ability to fight with him. The effect of the ambush was immediate. In the void, the battle continued. Lu Shui's long sword danced in an airtight manner, doing her best to maintain the advantage she had obtained with great difficulty, not daring to slack off in the slightest. As for Guazian, he immediately turned back after being sent flying. In a battle between two fifth-stage heavenly splitters, his role as a newly ascended third-stage heavenly splitter was limited. However, he could still divert Black River's attention a little, and the price he had to pay was suffering heavy injuries again and again. In the end, Black River's foundation was stronger. After fighting for a long time, he slowly stabilized his footing and soon found a turning point. His fight with Lu Shui made him realize that his opponent was strong on the outside but weak on the inside. This fifth-stage heaven-opening woman's true strength was somewhat lacking compared to his own. If he fought with his life on the line, she would definitely not be his opponent. However, Black River pretended not to notice. He roared furiously as he retreated in defeat. He looked like he was no match for Black River. Lu Shui became more and more unforgiving. The power of a fifth-stage heavenly splitter made her infatuated. She would not use it under normal circumstances, because it consumed too much energy. Now that Yang Kai's life was on the line, she blamed herself, and did not care too much. An illusory sword light slashed out from her glabella. It was neither magnificent nor majestic. It was silent and full of hidden killing intent. The sword light left her body, and slashed toward Lord of Heaven Black River's back. At the same time, Yang Kai looked terrified. He opened his eyes wide and staggered backward. He shouted, "Don't come any closer. If you come any closer, I won't be so polite to you." His threatening words made Lord of Heaven Black River laugh. "Junior, you dared to kill my descendant. Today, I will make you beg for death." He reached out to grab Yang Kai. With one grab, heaven and earth were sealed. Even the void was completely suppressed. The power of the fifth-stage heavenly splitter was evident. It was not that Lord of Heaven Black River did not notice the glabella sword coming at him from behind. However, he was confident that he could capture Yang Kai first, and then avoid this terrifying attack. Time seemed to stop. Lu Shui, who had slashed out with the glabella sword, chased after him with a pale face. Not far away, Guazian also roared and charged over with his shield, disregarding his own safety. Although the two were anxious to save Yang Kai, how could they be faster than Lord of Heaven Black River, who had premeditated this? Seeing that the big hand was about to capture Yang Kai suddenly grinned at Lord of Heaven Black River. Then, he raised his hand and summoned the gourd vine. The vine shook and pierced through the 7 small gourds. The power of yin, yang and 5 elements immediately formed a miraculous cycle. The aura of the world's power spread out. Yang Kai did not hesitate, and lashed his whip at Lord of Heaven Black River. Fifth-stage heavenly splitter? Lord of Heaven Black River's sinister smile turned into astonishment. He actually felt the aura of the fifth-stage heavenly splitter from this whip. He could not help but have a huge question in his mind. Could it be that this brat had been pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger? He seemed to be from the Emperor realm, but was actually a fifth-stage heavenly splitter? His moment of astonishment and hesitation caused him to miss a good opportunity. The gourd vine swept over and shattered Lord of Heaven Black River's big hand. Lord of Heaven Black River was shocked, and hurriedly summoned his Lord of Heaven Black River whip to block. The two whips collided, and a violent energy shockwave spread out. On the gourd vine, the 7 small gourds rolled into a ball, and fell into a deep sleep. Yang Kai himself spat out a mouthful of blood, and was sent flying. Although he could activate the might of the gourd vine, this thing could only catch his opponent off guard, and could not fight for a long time. His opponent was a genuine fifth-stage heavenly splitter. After a short confrontation, he immediately suffered a great loss. He felt his internal organs tumble and countless bones break. He was seriously injured in the blink of an eye, but this was enough. Although the gourd vine could only attack once in a short time, it still managed to block Lord of Heaven Black River, and send him flying. Chi. With a loud sound, Lord of Heaven Black River's face twisted, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. This was because Lu Shui's heart's brow sword had cut into his back, immediately tearing open a foot-long wound. Through this wound, one could almost see his broken internal organs. If it weren't for Yang Kai's unexpected actions, he could have captured Yang Kai, and then escaped from the heart's brow sword. But that moment of delay had caused him to miss a good opportunity, allowing Lu Shui's attack to succeed. The Heart's Brow sword was Lu Shue's trump card, and possessed terrifying power. After taking this blow, Lord of Heaven Black River's aura quickly withered. After all, the fundamental difference between the Emperor Realm and the Heaven-opening Realm was the world force. When the great demon god had wreaked havoc in the Star Realm and devoured many demon saint, he had also displayed the strength of the Heaven-opening Realm. However, in the Star Realm, Yang Kai and the other great emperors had still been able to use the world force of the Star Realm to kill him. Generally speaking, if the great emperors were to use their full strength in their respective Qianquan worlds, they would be able to display the strength of the low-rank Heaven-opening Realm. Thus, in some Qianquan worlds, some great emperors were unwilling to leave their own territories, because once they did, they would lose the support of the world force. However, there were also benefits to jumping out of the Star Realm, and that was the opportunity to pry into the mysteries of the martial Tao at a higher level. If one wanted to find traces of Black River in this realm, the best choice was to seek help from the great emperors of this realm. They definitely knew where Black River was currently hiding. However, what made Yang Kai feel speechless was that after he shouted, there was no response. The great emperors of this realm acted as if they had not heard him, clearly wanting to stay out of this matter. First, the uninvited guest, Black River, had rashly intruded, followed by Yang Kai and the others. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that this was a dispute between Heaven-opening Realm experts. It was understandable that the great emperors of this realm wanted to protect themselves and were unwilling to get involved. Yang Kai naturally would not let this matter rest. Looking down for a while, he nodded. What a wonderful paradise! This city is not small and has a large population. The common people live and work in peace and contentment. What's rare is that there is no dispute at all. The great emperors of this realm have truly managed it well. Guozian and Lu Shue also followed Yang Kai's gaze and saw a large city down below. They didn't know why Yang Kai was suddenly commenting on this city. Flatten this city for me. Don't leave a single person alive. Yang Kai suddenly pointed, a sinister look on his face. Guozian and Lu Shue both turned their heads to look, unable to conceal the shock in their eyes. The two of them had not followed Yang Kai for long, but they had not followed him for a short period of time either. According to their understanding, Yang Kai was not a bloodthirsty person, and could even be said to be a very reasonable person. How could he suddenly give such a demonic order? That large city below had a population of more than 1 million people? This was 1 million people, not 1 million livestock. While Lu Shue was still hesitating, Guozian cupped his fists and shouted, "Yes!" As Guozian spoke, he immediately flew to the sky above the city. Ignoring his injuries, he urged the world force and slowly raised his palm. In an instant, the sky changed color, and a huge palm print formed above the city. Previously, Black River had held some hope and held back his strength, so Guozian could still participate. But now Black River was no longer afraid of death. Guozian could no longer join the battle. He could only wander to the side, using some secret techniques to support him from afar. With a loud bang, a crater several hundred miles in diameter appeared on the surface of the sea. The seawater in the crater evaporated and the world hummed. Countless cracks appeared in the void, swimming around like fish. 2 fifth-grade heaven splitters were fighting here. This world was also somewhat unable to withstand it. Fortunately, the great emperors of this world had long been paying attention to this battle. They constantly mobilized the power of the world to calm the aftermath of the battle. Otherwise, this territory of the sea would have been destroyed and plunged into misery. And Black River's desperate struggle was also fruitful. Lu Shue had only just advanced to the 5th-grade heaven splitter, so she did not have time to consolidate her cultivation. Her Heart's Brow sword had heavily injured Black Sail before because Yang Kai had used the gourd vine to catch Black River off guard. Moreover, the Heart's Brow sword secret technique consumed too much of her energy. It would be impossible for her to use it again in a short period of time. This clash instantly caused her to fall. Her delicate body was sent flying like a rag sack. She spat out a mouthful of blood, and her aura was extremely weak. A good chance. When Black River saw this, he immediately turned around and fled without hesitation, rushing towards the sky. Guizian wanted to stop him, but he was sent flying by a whip. Yang Kai's figure flickered, and with the support of the space principles, he instantly arrived in front of Lu Shui and reached out to support her. Lu Shui coughed out a mouthful of blood and gritted her teeth. "Master, this humble one can still fight." Yang Kai nodded repeatedly. "Don't worry, he won't be able to escape." As he spoke, he reached out and grabbed at the air, pulling out a bunch of grapes. As soon as the grape appeared, he put his hands on his waist and laughed. "Uncle Pooh is here." As soon as his voice fell, he realized that something was wrong and glared at Yang Kai. "Smelly brat. What are you doing? I'll kill you." His two short hands kept scratching, as if he wanted to fight Yang Kai to the death. But Yang Kai had already plucked a grape from his head and stuffed him back into the sealed world bead. Yang Kai stuffed the grape into Lu Shui's mouth. "Eat." Lu Shui swallowed it directly, and in the next moment, her dim eyes bloomed with an amazing brilliance. In the land of everlastingness, Yang Kai obtained a total of 3 saint-grade medicines, each with their own miraculous effects. Among them, the profound colored illusory mushroom had an extraordinary hallucinogenic effect, and the gourd vine was even more amazing. The 7 small gourds contained yin-yang and 5 elements force of the 5th grade. With the help of the gourd vine, he could erupt with a 5th grade heaven opening attack. Although the Pu Baixiong did not have the ability to fight enemies, it was a saint-grade medicine for recovery and healing. Yang Kai had eaten 2 grapes before, so he naturally had a deep understanding of this. The surging medicinal efficacies exploded in her stomach, and a majestic vitality nourished her physique and meridians. In the blink of an eye, Lu Shui's injuries were mostly healed, and her originally weak aura swept out again. "Many thanks, Master," Lu Shui said gratefully. "Catch up with him, but don't kill him," Yang Kai ordered. Lu Shui nodded and turned into a sword light, shooting straight into the sky and disappearing in the blink of an eye. Yang Kai went to Guizian's side and examined him, finding that he was fine, but he had consumed too much energy. Although he was injured, it was not too serious. At the same time, the waves of the sea in the Eastern Territory calmed down, and countless people on the big ships still had lingering fears. The earthquake that had lasted for several months in the Southern Territory also quickly subsided, and the magma that overflowed from the cracks in the ground slowly calmed down. Wen Zishan and Gao Shueting looked at each other in confusion, but in the next moment, both of their hearts moved and their faces lit up with joy. The Void Master is back. The moment before the sandstorm in the western regions reached the Lu clan's headquarters, it suddenly dissipated. After surviving the calamity, the Lu clan's patriarch fell to the ground, his entire body drenched in sweat. In the 4 territories of the world, hundreds of millions of creatures, at the same time, received the shocking news. The great emperors of the void had returned. After a short silence, the 4 territories cheered. Decades ago, during the War of the Two Realms, the great emperors of the chaotic star territory had almost engulfed the star boundary. It was the sect of the great emperors of the void who protected the last pure land of the star boundary, preserving the last glimmer of hope for the star boundary. It was also the great emperors of the void who finally turned the tide and killed the great demon god, resolving the crisis of the star boundary. After the War of the Two Realms, the great emperors of the void did not hesitate to jump out of the star boundary and go to the outside world to find a way to save the star boundary. And now he was back. Yang Kai nodded solemnly. Son will do his best and not disappoint father and mother. He turned around and held his little senior sister and Shui Yu's hands, tenderly saying, "You've worked hard as well." The 2 of them looked at each other and slowly shook their heads. It wasn't hard at all. Tears fell from their eyes. They knew that this wasn't a good time to act like this, but they couldn't control themselves no matter what. Yu Meng immediately went over and comforted them. Yang Kai also met the 2 elders of the dragon race and Tian Yen. Tian Yen was one of the great emperors from the Divine Ascension Mirror, and had made great contributions during the Great War between the two realms. Back then, he had concealed his identity and infiltrated the demon race, causing great losses to the demon race. After the Great War between the two realms, he remained in the High Heaven Palace. But because the star boundaries principles were shattered, he was unable to become one of the great emperors, even though he had the foundation of the great emperors. Just as they were talking, the space array flickered, and a group of 3 figures appeared. Yang Kai turned his head and saw Bing Yin, Su Yan, and Ji Yao walking out of the hall one after another. When they saw each other, they naturally exchanged some pleasantries. They hadn't exchanged more than a few words when the space array flickered again. Immediately after, a loud voice rang out, "Adoptive father is back?" In the next instant, Yang Xiao rushed out of the hall. His eyes turned and fixed on Yang Kai. He immediately cheered and rushed over, running around Yang Kai and shouting, "Brat, you have no respect for your elders." Zhu Yin couldn't watch any longer. He reached out and grabbed Yang Xiao's ear, dragging him back. Yang Xiao begged for mercy in pain. Yang Shui stood in front of Yang Kai and said in a clear voice, "Big brother." Yang Kai laughed and patted her head. "I haven't seen you in so many years. Little sister is getting more and more beautiful." He loved this little sister very much, but he also owed her a lot. He had been running around outside all these years. Not only was he unable to fulfill his filial duties in front of his parents, but he also failed to fulfill his responsibility as a big brother. It was even thanks to Yang Shui accompanying his parents that he was able to show off his skills outside. Hearing Yang Kai's words, Yang Shui's delicate nose wrinkled. Big brother only knows how to talk nonsense. No wonder he can deceive so many sisters-in-law. Yang Kai laughed. The space array flashed again, and Martial Beast arrived with Mo Shaoqi and Fu Xian. Immediately after, the great emperors of the secular world, Wen Zishan and Gao Shuiting appeared together. After a while, Yao Jun Hyoji and his son arrived. Since the War of the Two Worlds, there had never been a day when the High Heaven Palace's space array was activated so frequently. There had never been a day when so many masters gathered together. The wondrous Pill Great Emperors came with several of his disciples. The Flowering Shadow Great Emperors came with Li Shiqing. The Heaven Secret Great Emperors came with Gao Zhan. The Ice Feather Great Emperors came alone. The Iron Blood Great Emperor came with Lin Yun'er. The 3 Saint Masters of the Ancient Wildlands, Qiongqi, Lu Yan and Shanqing Luo. They all came. Before Yang Kai left, he had arranged countless space arrays in the entire star boundary, connecting the 4 territories together. Anyone could go anywhere in the star boundary without any restrictions. The reason for this was to make it convenient for the great forces to support each other and help each other. Because of this, it didn't take long for many masters to come to the High Heaven Palace. If not for this, the masters from the other territories would have to waste a lot of time to come. Yang Kai greeted the great emperors one by one. Yang Kai took a sip of tea. Except for those third-stage Emperor Realm cultivators who must be taken away, everyone else, no matter who they are, must show their true abilities if they want to go outside the universe. Cultivation is only a part of it, but the key is malleability and growth. The universe is not like the star boundary, and there may be many dangers in the future. You must tell them this as well. Yes, Hua Qingxi respectfully replied. Then this subordinate will go and arrange the procedures. It will take at most 2 months. Everything can be arranged properly. Master, please prepare early. With that said, Hua Qingxi was about to leave. Yang Kai raised his hand and said, Chief Steward, please wait. Does Master have any other orders? Yang Kai scratched his face and said somewhat awkwardly, I'll have to trouble Chief Steward to comb my hair. I want to see Father and Mother. Hua Qingxi couldn't help laughing. I can't help you with this, but I have a candidate in mind. Call her over. She has been waiting to see Master. With that said, without waiting for Yang Kai's agreement, she immediately took out a communication artifact and contacted her. A moment later, a graceful figure walked in from outside. This subordinate will take her leave. Hua Qingxi covered her mouth and chuckled, then left calmly. Yang Kai looked at the person who came, and that person also looked at him. She blushed slightly and bowed. Greetings, brother. Junior sister Yao. Yang Kai couldn't help but laugh. The person who came was Ji Yao. Ji Yao pursed her red lips and said gently, I heard from Chief Steward that brother needs to tidy up your appearance. Ah! Without waiting for her to finish, a strong force suddenly came over. Her body couldn't help but fall forward and fall directly into Yang Kai's arms. That familiar presence enveloped her body and mind, causing Ji Yao's heart to be in chaos. Looking up, she saw Yang Kai looking at her with a smile. We haven't seen each other in so many years. Junior sister, you've become estranged. Ji Yao's eyelashes trembled, and her breathing quickened. Her mouth opened and closed a few times, but she couldn't say a single word. If junior sister doesn't say anything, then I'll do as I please. Yang Kai laughed nastily, got up, and carried Ji Yao, then walked step by step into the inner hall. Brother, what are you going to do? Ji Yao suddenly felt that something was wrong, and asked nervously. Yang Kai smiled, and said with a firm gaze, I'm going to give you an explanation. Give me what explanation? Ji Yao panicked even more. Yang Kai had already walked in front of a side room, and kicked open the door. The scene inside the room immediately entered her eyes. Ji Yao's eyes instantly widened. Inside the room, delicate snow-white bodies were laid out horizontally, their clothes scattered on the floor. The entire side room was like a battlefield, and the smell of blood and battle still lingered. The curled-up corpses, lying on the floor, spasmed from time to time, and murmurs came from their mouths. Ji Yao had never seen such a cruel scene, and for a moment, she didn't even dare to breathe loudly. It wasn't until Yang Kai gently laid her down on the bed that Ji Yao almost cried out, her beautiful eyes trembling as she looked at him and whispered, Brother! Her hands were placed in front of her, one hand on Yang Kai's chest, as if she wanted to resist a giant mountain falling from the sky. They've all been killed by me, now it's your turn. Yang Kai chuckled. Was this the explanation he wanted to give her? Ji Yao wanted to cry and laugh at the same time, her mood extremely complicated. Looking at her, Yang Kai's eyes were filled with tenderness, and although his expression was firm, and his tone was firm, he didn't make the slightest move. Ji Yao knew that as long as she showed the slightest sign of rejection, Yang Kai wouldn't continue. She asked herself, did she still want to be sneaky? Do I have to stand far away and watch other women surround and protect him, chatting and laughing? Even if she was worried, even if she missed him, did she want to find an excuse to get close? The panic in her beautiful eyes gradually dissipated, and she gently closed her eyes. Her hands wrapped around Yang Kai's waist, and a teardrop fell from the corner of her eye, but the corners of her mouth were curved in a smile. Yang Kai raised his hand, wiped away the tear, and gently kissed her hair. Her clothes were loosened, and her mind was in chaos. Unlike the previous storm, this time Yang Kai's movements were extremely gentle, like a gentle breeze and drizzle. Flowers fell one after another, and people's faces were like flowers. Yu Rumeng's eyes opened a slit, vaguely seeing something, but she couldn't resist the sleepiness and fell asleep again, her mouth unconsciously muttering, Evil spirit! This made Ji Yao's body suddenly stiffen, and she violently trembled. Yang Kai's mouth hooked up, and his smile was incomparably evil, making Ji Yao blush. After an unknown amount of time, Ji Yao fell into a deep sleep, and when she woke up, she suddenly felt several pairs of eyes staring at her. Her chaotic consciousness slowly recovered, and when she recalled everything that had happened before, she screamed, quickly grabbed the quilt, and covered herself. She had no face to see anyone. The principle of time fluctuated wildly as the two sides changed their hand seals, and the power around them surged. Yang Kai's hand seals were one step behind, but he was the first to reach them. A low murmur resounded through the world. The flowing time Great Emperor's withering glory shuttle dream. A palm shot out. At the same time, on the flowing time temple, Yang Xiao and Yang Shui also shot out their palms. The power of the flowing time Great Emperor eroded each other, collided in midair, and dissipated. The time in the void seemed to have experienced thousands of years of flowing in an instant. Yang Kai raised his eyebrows and suddenly felt an unusual fluctuation coming from the flowing time temple. The originally evenly matched situation was instantly broken. The principle of time displayed by the two little guys on the opposite side suddenly froze by 30% and suppressed his flowing time Great Emperor's shuttle seal. The flowing time temple has such a magical effect? Yang Kai was surprised. The fluctuation coming from the flowing time temple had the magical effect of strengthening the power of Yang Xiao and Yang Shui's divine technique. Yang Xiao laughed and said, "Little Ant and I have inherited our master's legacy, and this flowing time temple was our master's temporary residence. Using the divine technique of the principle of time in this temple has its own advantages. Adoptive father, are you surprised?" In a few words, Yang Kai's flowing time Great Emperor's shuttle seal was defeated. On the contrary, although the principle of time of the two little guys was weakened, it was still fiercely attacking. This was not the end. Yang Shui shouted, "The second move." As soon as she finished speaking, a small hourglass suddenly appeared in front of her. In the hourglass, divine sand flowed and floated out. There were exactly 10,008 grains. This was the flowing time Great Emperor's divine sand that the Great Emperors had spent endless effort to polish into. The flowing time Great Emperor's divine sand floated and wrapped into the flowing time Great Emperor's shuttle seal, adding to each other, making the power of the two divine technique extremely terrifying. Yang Kai retreated quickly. His expression was dignified. Spring sleepy, summer tired, autumn sleepy hibernation. Yang Xiao suddenly waved his hand lightly, and an invisible force gushed out from his palm and wrapped in the flowing time Great Emperor's divine sand. He looked at Yang Kai with a smile and said, "Adoptive father, you are sleepy. Take a good rest." The three moves combined into one, and the power increased again. Yang Kai's vision was filled with the 10,008 grains of divine sand. Before the attack arrived, he suddenly felt an inexplicable sense of fatigue, and even his eyelids became heavy. Divine soul attack. Yang Kai raised his eyebrows and smacked his lips. Interesting. If it was an ordinary divine soul attack, he might not have taken it seriously, but this divine soul attack driven by the principles of time seemed simple, but it could give people the illusion that they had experienced the endless flowing time Great Emperor in an instant. In this endless flowing time Great Emperor, endless exhaustion would accumulate, and no one would be able to withstand it. Yang Kai's figure suddenly stopped, and he no longer retreated. The 10,008 grains of divine sand swept over. Yang Zhao's face was overflowing with excitement, and Yang Shui also gently clenched her fists. The divine sand was about to envelop Yang Kai. Once that happened, he would not be able to escape. Yang Kai slightly raised a finger and pointed in front of himself. In an instant, so close yet so far. The smile on Yang Zhao's face stiffened, and Yang Shui also showed a look of surprise, because in their perception, Yang Kai was only a few thousand feet away from them, but it also felt like they were separated by thousands of mountains and rivers, and the distance between them was extremely far. The 10,008 grains of divine sand that were about to rush over also froze in midair. Yang Kai wasn't frozen in place, but was instead moving forward at a slow speed, as slow as a turtle crawling. Obviously, he was so close yet so far away. That small distance had been extended infinitely by Yang Kai's movement. This was the mystery of the so close, yet so far divine technique. "We lost." Yang Xiao gnashed his teeth. "Ha!" Yang Shui sighed slightly, and the seal on her hand dissipated. Restricted by Yang Kai's space divine technique, she could not even take back the flowing time Great Emperor's divine sand. Yang Kai chuckled and waved his hand, dispersing the divine technique. The 10,008 grains of divine sand swept back, and the two-time divine technique hidden in the divine sand also collapsed. The flowing time Great Emperor Master was a peerless genius. With his foundation, he already had the ability to jump out of the shackles of heaven and earth, but in order to destroy Mo Sheng's conspiracy, he did not hesitate to risk his life and become the demon race's territory, fighting with Mo Sheng to the death. In the end, although he died, he also brought new hope to Star Boundary. It can be said that the flowing time great emperor, master, contributed greatly to Star Boundary's success today. Otherwise, Star Boundary would have long become the second demon race's territory. Yang Kai sighed. Although the flowing time great emperor master died, he also left behind his legacy. The two of you are lucky enough to inherit his legacy, so you should also inherit his will. If Star Boundary is in trouble in the future, even if you have to give up your lives, you must protect the peace of Star Boundary. This way, you will not disappoint the sacrifice of your predecessors. We will follow adoptive father's teachings. Yang Xiao quickly adjusted his expression. Prepare yourselves. In 2 months, follow me outside of heaven and earth. After Yang Kai finished speaking, he left in a flash. Yang Xiao and Yang Shui were left looking at each other. After a while, Yang Xiao scratched his head and said, "Little auntie, I don't know if I heard wrong, but adoptive father just told us to follow him outside of heaven and earth?" Yang Shui pursed her lips and said with a smile, "Isn't this exactly what you want?" Yang Zhao's eyes suddenly lit up, and he put his hands on his hips and laughed. "I knew adoptive father would take me away. Outside of heaven and earth, this young master is coming." He had a temperament that did not like to be quiet, and now that his wish was fulfilled, he was naturally overjoyed. When Yang Kai returned to Lingxiao Peak, the girls had already gotten up. Ji Yao stood there with a red face, and she was somewhat at a loss. When she saw Yang Kai, she looked at him with some resentment. Shwa shwa shwa. The others looked at him with piercing eyes, especially Yu Ru Meng. Her gaze was as if she wanted to eat someone. Shanqing Luo even gritted her teeth and sneered. Yang Kai touched his nose and said embarrassedly, "Have you all rested well?" Ji Yao's face was already red, and when she heard this sentence, her face became even redder, and smoke was about to come out of her head. Yu Ru Meng said indifferently, "So what if you have rested well? So what if you haven't rested well?" Yang Kai laughed awkwardly. Yu Ru Meng stepped forward and pinched the flesh on his waist. She gritted her teeth and said, "What are you laughing at? Now that things have come to this, you have to come up with a plan." Yang Kai's expression did not change, and he said suspiciously, "Plan? What plan?" Yu Ru Meng was furious. She looked at Ji Yao, who had her head lowered, and said, "Don't you need to give her an explanation? Isn't this too much?" Yang Kai was speechless. Yu Ru Meng was furious. "Is this considered an explanation? What about Bing Yin? How are you going to explain this?" Yang Kai blinked, thinking that there was no need to explain anything. But after thinking about it, he really had to talk to her. After all, Bing Yin was Ji Yao's honored master. It would be unjustifiable if he did not explain. If he really went to Ice Heart Valley to talk to Bing Yin about this, he thought that Bing Yin would be happy to see it happen. After all, she should have been aware of it and would not obstruct him. It was just that he was too embarrassed to show up. He looked at Yu Ru Meng for help. Yu Ru Meng coldly snorted. "Why didn't you think about it when you were acting like a beast? Now you feel guilty?" She glared at him hatefully. "Okay, I will go to Ice Heart Valley tomorrow and talk to Bing Yin." He turned his head and looked to the side. "Su Yan, you go with her." Su Yan nodded. "Okay." Ji Yao was Bing Yin's third disciple, and Su Yan was Bing Yin's youngest disciple. She was Ji Yao's senior sister, so it would be easy for her to talk to her. Kai Yang felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Chapter 4176. 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. The square of Ice Snow City was packed with people. There were at least 600,000 cultivators gathered here. Although there were many of them, they were arranged in neat rows, forming huge square formations. No one was making a ruckus. The 600,000 cultivators stood there quietly like a well-trained army. However, everyone's eyes were shining with excitement and anticipation. Zishao was a young man in one of the formations. Compared to when he first came to Ice Snow City 2 months ago, the young man's appearance had not changed much, but he had grown a lot. His cultivation in the Tao of Arrays had improved by leaps and bounds. Xiao Wu quietly sent a message. "No wonder people say that we can't cultivate behind closed doors. In the past 2 months, I've been competing with many fellow cultivators, and my attainments in the Tao of Arrays have improved greatly. It seems that I'll have to communicate with others more often in the future. Zixia was also filled with emotion. Yes, in the origin returning realm, there are many people whose attainments in the Tao of Arrays are higher than ours. It's really amazing. Xiao Wu chuckled meaningfully. But we still got what we wanted. Now we can follow the Void Master to the outer world. I wonder what it's like outside the outer world. In the past 2 months, Ice Snow City was in full swing. There were all kinds of competitions and tests. The two young men passed all the tests. Although there were times when they failed, they did indeed show great talent in the Tao of Arrays. Now their cultivation was not high, and their knowledge in the Tao of Arrays was relatively shallow. However, their growth was obvious to all. The Southern Gate Army made the decision to let these two young men pass. After 3 months of screening, 500,000 people were selected from tens of millions of people. This was an extremely huge project. For this, the entire High Heaven Palace was put into operation. Not only the High Heaven Palace, but also the Northern Territory's Ice Heart Valley, Fire Dragon Palace, and Meteon Pavilion invested an incalculable amount of manpower and material resources. Even the great sects in the Eastern Territory, Southern Territory, and Western Territory contributed. This was how Yang Kai was able to select the number of people required in such a short period of time. In the end, the final result was not 500,000, but 600,000. It did not matter if there were more people since the Void was in dire need of manpower anyway. These 600,000 people might not be the strongest in the astral boundary, but they were the current and future elites of the various territories and territories of the astral boundary. Their existence was bound to give the Void Zone an extremely vigorous development and a vast future. Palace Master, everything is ready. On the other side of the square, Hua Qingxi looked at Yang Kai and said. Yang Kai nodded. Start the array. Upon receiving the order, Hua Qingxi took out a compass and sent out a message. In the next moment, the Southern Gate Army on the square immediately summoned a disc array and poured their Emperor Qi into it. Rumbling sounds came from the ground, as if thunder was rolling. Above the entire square, bright lines flickered, wrapping around the 600,000 people. Everyone had already been instructed to relax their minds and not put up any resistance. The light grew brighter and brighter, and when it reached a certain level, it burst out with a bang. When the light dissipated, the 600,000 people gathered on the square disappeared, all taken into the sealed world bead. Yang Kai stretched out his hand and pulled the sealed world bead back from the void. He then reached out to grab the Southern Gate Army and put them into the sealed world bead as well. Only then did he look at Hua Qingxi and said, I'll leave everything in the astral boundary to Grand Chief. He originally wanted to take Hua Qingxi with him. After all, she had been managing the High Heaven Palace for so many years. If she was taken to the Void Zone, she could continue to display her talents and save Yang Kai a lot of effort. However, Hua Qingxi did not agree. There were still tens of thousands of disciples in the High Heaven Palace. If she, the Grand Chief, left, the High Heaven Palace would be leaderless. She insisted on staying, so Yang Kai could only let her do as she wished. Fortunately, Bian Yuqing, the second chief, followed him. With her presiding over the situation in the Void Zone, it was the same. Hua Qingxi said seriously, Rest assured, Palace Master. This mistress will take good care of the High Heaven Palace and the Star Boundary. Yang Kai smiled and said, Don't delay your own cultivation. Let's meet again outside the universe. Although he took many people with him, he also left behind a lot of cultivation resources. The cultivation resources obtained outside the universe were not suitable for the cultivator in the Star Boundary. However, the Star Boundary itself had many resources that had not been discovered. During the 2 months of selecting the cultivator, Yang Kai did not stay idle. He searched around and found all the cultivation resources available in the Star Boundary. With the help of these resources, coupled with the World Tree stabilizing the Star Boundary and repairing the world principles of the Star Boundary, he believed that in the near future, masters in the Star Boundary would definitely spring up like bamboo shoots after a rain. The entire Star Boundary was the rear base of the Void Zone. It could continuously send talents to the Void Zone. The only drawback was that the distance between each other was a little far. I will not disappoint, Palace Master. Let's go. Yang Kai took a step forward and was already in midair. Below, Hua Qingxi bowed gracefully. Farewell, Palace Master. In Ice Snow City, countless people shouted in unison. Farewell, Void Master. Yang Kai looked back, waved his hand gently, and took another step forward, his figure disappearing from sight. This time, when he left the star boundary, he took not only the 600,000 elites selected from the various territories, but also many emperors. In the Northern Territory, needless to say, the masters of the High Heaven Palace were Yu Rumeng, Su Yan, Xiaoning Chang, Shuiyu, Shanqing Luo, Xiao Xiao, Lu Yan Qiongqi Guizhu, Qiyu, Aio, Bian Yuqing and others. All of them were emperors. There were also Ice Heart Valley's Bing Yun, Ji Yao, and Rua Yun, Sun Yun Xiao Fire Dragon Palace's Li Jiao, Mi Chi of Mi Tian Pavilion, Serene Soul Palace in the Eastern Territory, Star Soul Palace, Azure Sun Temple, and Heavenly Martial Holy Land in the Southern Territory were all masters. In addition, in the ancient wild lands, there were the 3 Saint Venerables and their respective monster kings, the Stone Mongoose, and the Wood Spirit clan. It could be said that the current small sealed world was not only a gathering of the elites of the entire Star Boundaries territory, but also a gathering of the top forces. Not to mention, many great emperors were also among them. Yang Kai's trip had almost emptied the Star Boundaries foundation. However, the World Tree was rapidly repairing the astral world. The remaining warriors could grow together with the astral world in a very short period of time, witnessing the rise of a universe. As the astral world flourished and developed, more and more powerhouses would emerge. After a while, at the periphery of the Star Boundary, a figure flashed and Yang Kai appeared. Lu Shui and the others, who had been guarding this place, quickly stepped forward and cupped their hands. Master! Yang Kai nodded and looked to the side. Heihe, I have a task for you. Please instruct me, Master. Heihe looked solemn. Stay here and protect the safety of this world. If you slack off, you will be executed without mercy. Heihe felt bitter in his heart, but he had no choice but to respond. This humble servant obeys. Although his cultivation was countless times stronger than Yang Kai's, since he had left his name and aura on the loyalty and righteousness list, he could not resist at all. Otherwise, Yang Kai would only need to use the Xieji horn to scratch out his name, and his soul would scatter. Yang Kai had almost emptied the Star Boundaries foundation and taken away most of its high-end forces. So how could he not leave some backup plans? After all, the Void was far away from the Star Boundary, and there was no way to contact each other in time. If the Star Boundary really encountered any danger, he would not be able to provide support at all. Heihe was a 5th-stage heaven splitter and was very strong. With him guarding this place, he could deal with any danger. However, Yang Kai also knew that although Heihe agreed readily, it was only because of the loyalty and righteousness list. He might not be so sincere in his heart. Smiling gently, Yang Kai said, 500 years. You only need to guard here for 500 years. As long as you don't make any big mistakes, I will return your freedom after 500 years. I swear on my Dao seal. Heihe was shocked when he heard this, and a look of great surprise appeared on his face. He cupped his hands again and again. Many thanks, Master, for your kindness. This humble servant will do his best, and will not allow any accidents to happen to this world. He was a 5th-stage heaven splitter. Although 500 years was not a short time for him, it was definitely not long either. Naturally, he could afford to wait. Moreover, Yang Kai had sworn on his Dao seal, so he could be trusted. Yang Kai then asked him to take out his universe map and mark the location of the Void. He also told him that if there were any disasters that were difficult to resolve, he should immediately report to the Void. Heihe respectfully complied. After arranging everything, Yang Kai looked back at the Star Boundary again. His eyes paused for a moment on a towering ancient tree, before he sped off in a certain direction. Now that the matters in the Star Boundary were dealt with, all that was left was the new demon territory. When he left back then, he separated the small sealed world from the demon territory and formed a new demon territory. he left his embodiment to oversee it. Today there were still countless demon race living in the demon territory. Demon Saint Bailey Mo and Chang Tian were also among them. Yang Kai did not plan to bring the demon race to the void. In the war between the two worlds, both the human and demon races had suffered countless casualties. The hatred between them was irreconcilable. If he really brought the demon race to the void, who knew what kind of disputes would arise? However, he could take Chang Tian and Bailey Mo with him. One of them was a demon saint, while the other had the bloodline of the dragon race. With the cultivation of a demon saint, if they wanted to advance further, they could only jump out of the shackles of the universe. The new demon territory was located in the same large territory as the star boundary. Back then, in order to prevent the two worlds from having any contact, Yang Kai deliberately chose a relatively distant location when he separated the two worlds. However, from what he could see now, the distance between these two worlds was not too far. A few days later, Yang Kai flew over a piece of the void and looked around. Suddenly, a look of suspicion appeared on his face. If he remembered correctly, this was the place where he separated the demon territory. But today, he did not see any trace of the demon territory. This made him a little puzzled, wondering if he had remembered the wrong location. Although the demon territory he separated from the demon territory had turned into a rolling shape, it was still a universe world after all, so there was no reason for it to move so easily. Did something happen? Yang Kai suddenly had a bad feeling. He immersed himself in his divine sense and carefully sensed. The embodiment sat in the demon territory and had an inseparable connection with him. As long as the distance was not too far, he could naturally sense it. After a while, Yang Kai looked up in a certain direction and sped off. Chapter 4177. A few days later, the trio had crossed hundreds of millions of kilometers, and Yang Kai sensed that they were getting closer and closer to the demon territory. Lu Shui suddenly exclaimed, "Master, there's a situation up ahead." Her cultivation was much higher than Yang Kai's, so whether it was in terms of eyesight or perception, she was naturally better than Yang Kai, so she was able to discover some things ahead of time. "What's the situation?" Yang Kai turned and asked. "There's a ship chasing a. Is that a universe world?" Lu Shui's tone was a little uncertain. Yang Kai's brow furrowed as he asked, "What kind of universe world?" Lu Shui said with a strange expression, "It looks like a big fish with a round and rolling belly. Strange, why can this universe world move? It seems to have its own sentience." Yang Kai's face sank. A universe world that looked like a big fish with a round and rolling belly. If it wasn't the new demon territory, what could it be? When Yang Kai separated the demon territory, the new demon territory turned into a rolling territory. Because the rolling was created by the embodiment, using the heaven-devouring Great Emperor's battle law, the demon territory retained its rolling shape. It was also for this reason that the embodiment had to stay behind to take charge. It could be said that the relationship between the embodiment and the demon territory was similar to the relationship between Yang Kai's main body and the small sealed world. It was not easy to move a universe world, but this new demon territory was different. With the embodiment presiding over the overall situation, the rolling universe world could move as it pleased. But where did that ship come from? Can you investigate the specific situation of that ship? Yang Kai asked in a deep voice. Lu Shui slowly shook her head. "It's too far, I can only get a general idea." This couldn't be helped. She could only discover the ship from this position, and if she wanted to pry into its specific information, she would need to get closer. After pondering for a moment, Yang Kai summoned the shadowless muslin, wrapped the three of them, and quietly approached. Although the demon territory was moving, its speed was not very fast, and the ship following behind was not too fast, neither too slow nor too fast. So in less than a day, the three of them were already close to 1,000 kilometers away. In order to avoid exposing his whereabouts, Yang Kai didn't dare to get too close. Although the shadowless veil was quite good, it still had its limits. Before he could confirm whether or not there was a medium-grade heaven splitter on this ship, it was best to be careful. The distance of 1,000 miles was not close, but the view in the void was wide, so the situation in front of them could be seen very clearly. Lu Shui observed for a while and said seriously, "Master, I'm afraid there's at least one mid-rank heaven splitter on that ship." "How so?" Yang Kai asked. Lu Shui said, "This ship is not ordinary. Even if a low-grade splitter can drive it, it can't be used for a long period of time. Only a mid-grade splitter can handle it with such ease." Yang Kai's heart sank. This ship was chasing after the demon territory, so it clearly didn't have good intentions. And now, there was at least one mid-rank heaven splitter on the ship. If it was below the 5th rank, then it would be fine. Lu Shui was also at the 5th rank, so she should be able to handle it. But what if it was a 6th rank? If that was really the case, then even if Black River was summoned, he wouldn't be the ship's match. He didn't even understand why this ship was chasing after the demon territory. Just as he was puzzled, the rolling ship's huge body suddenly shook, and a crack appeared on its back. From that crack, a blood-soaked figure rushed out, and behind him was the phantom of a miniature universe world. Yang Kai's expression suddenly became gloomy. This person was shockingly a heaven splitter. Although from the miniature universe world's phantom, it was only a low-grade heaven splitter, there was definitely no such person in the demon territory. In that case, was that ship attacking the demon territory? But now, the demon territory's barrier had been torn apart, and that low-grade heaven splitter had escaped. Demonic Qi. Lu Shui's expression froze as she saw the demonic Qi lingering around the blood-soaked figure. Could it be someone from the Great Devil Heavens? Yang Kai was startled. The Great Devil Heavens was one of the 36 paradise, and Mo Sheng was most likely from there. If the person on this ship was really someone from the Great Devil Heavens, then this matter would be troublesome. While speaking, the blood-soaked figure had already rushed back into the ship. In the next moment, 2 more figures rushed out from the ship and rushed into the demon territory's barrier that had been torn apart, disappearing from sight. So that's how it is. Lu Shui suddenly revealed a look of understanding and whispered, "Master, they should be trying to devour the world principles and world force of that miniature universe world to strengthen their own miniature universe world." "What do you mean?" Yang Kai was dumbfounded. Lu Shui explained, "Master is currently only an Emperor Realm Master, so there are some things you might not know. After we cultivate to the Heaven Splitter Realm, if we want to become stronger, the only way is to continuously raise our own grade. But how difficult is that to do? It often takes hundreds, thousands of years, or even longer to accumulate. Take this mistress for example. I broke through to the 4th stage more than 600 years ago, and have been refining Heaven Splitter pills all this time. But until recently, there were no signs of me breaking through. According to my estimate, it will take at least 100 years before I can break through to the 5th stage. So long. Although he had long known that it was not easy to break through to the Heaven Splitter realm, the time it took to do so was a bit too long. Lu Shui's aptitude should be quite good, otherwise, she would not have been able to break through to the 4th stage. If even she was like this, the others would not be much worse off. Lu Shui continued. Of course, in addition to this, there are many other ways to strengthen one's miniature universe world. For Heaven Splitters, the deeper the foundation of their miniature universe world, the more power they can display. Yang Kai lightly nodded. This was not difficult to understand. Heaven Splitters used world force, and the foundation of world force lay in the miniature universe world within their bodies. The deeper the foundation of their miniature universe world was, the more power they could display. As such, after a cultivator breaks through to the Heaven Splitter realm, what they need to do the most is to constantly increase the foundation of their miniature universe world. Taking Heaven Splitter pills is the most common method, and although it is slow, it is very gentle. In addition, there is a more extreme method, devouring the world principles and world force of that miniature universe world for their own use. Yang Kai narrowed his eyes. Like what we are seeing now. That's right. Lu Shui nodded. However, this method has a very large drawback, because the world principles of every miniature universe world are slightly different. If you rashly devour and refine them, it is extremely likely that it will cause varying degrees of impact on your miniature universe world. If the impact isn't too great, it won't matter. But if the impact is too great, it might even cause the cultivator's strength to decrease instead of increase. As such, very few people use this method to strengthen their foundation, because the risk is too great. Very few doesn't mean there isn't any. What Master said is that if you can find a miniature universe world that is perfectly compatible with your foundation, then you won't have to worry about the consequences of devouring it. For example, when Master breaks through to the Heaven Splitter realm in the future, the most suitable place for you to devour is the miniature universe world you came from, because all your foundations are laid in that miniature universe world and are perfectly compatible with the world principles. Of course, if Master really does this, then the world principles of your miniature universe world will be broken, and the more you devour, the more unstable that miniature universe world will become. Over the years, it will become a land of death. Yang Kai was shocked. Has anyone done this before? Lu Shui nodded solemnly. Yes. In ancient times, this sort of thing happened quite often, but it's much rarer nowadays. The reason for this is that as long as you aren't crazy, you won't do this sort of thing. After all, even if you devour the world principles of your miniature universe world, you won't become much stronger. Secondly, every miniature universe world has its own great emperors. Although the great emperors don't have high cultivations, they have obtained the approval of the world will, and are able to use the world principles. In their own miniature universe world, they are equivalent to lower rank heaven splitters, so devouring them won't be easy. Thirdly, in the current 3,000 worlds, most miniature universe worlds have their own high sex, and are protected by them. Rashly devouring them will only lead to chaos. Yang Kai suddenly said, then wouldn't a miniature universe world without the protection of a high sect be in trouble? The large territory where the star boundary was located was relatively remote, and there weren't any decent forces here. It could be said that it was an ungoverned area, which was exactly what some people wanted. Lu Shui gently nodded. If I'm not wrong, the world principles of that miniature universe world should be very compatible with the miniature universe world of the master of this ship. So he chased after it and constantly sent his subordinates to suppress it, wanting to take it down. Since he's a medium-rank heaven splitter, why doesn't he do it himself? Yang Kai was puzzled. In the demon territory, there were only embodiments, Chang Tian and Bei Liemo, who were supported by the world will in the demon territory, and were comparable to lower-rank heaven splitters. But in the face of a medium-rank heaven splitter, they still didn't have the power to fight back. If that ship master really wanted to take action, the demon territory wouldn't be able to resist at all. Lu Shui said, if he personally took action, there would be a great battle. At that time, the miniature universe world would be shattered, and its principles would collapse, which wouldn't be good for him. At this point Lu Shui said, Master, what does that miniature universe world have to do with you? Yang Kai had come straight to this miniature universe world. She wasn't a fool, so she could naturally see some clues. Yang Kai said, that miniature universe world is mine. Lu Shui's beautiful eyes flashed. Since that's the case, then we can't just sit back and watch. What we need to confirm the most now is how strong the master of this ship is. This was a bit difficult. Unless they took the initiative to expose their whereabouts to spy, no one knew how strong the master of this ship was. Guozian said, Master, should we ask Black River to come over? In the face of an unknown powerful enemy, 2 5th-rank heaven splitters were better than one. It's too late. Yang Kai shook his head. This battle had been going on for who knew how long, and the situation in the demon territory wasn't optimistic. If they called Black River over, it would take at least 10 days. I'll go, Lu Shui volunteered. Yang Kai shook his head. No, if that ship's master is a 6th-rank heaven splitter, you'll be like a lamb in a tiger's den. Judging from how this person acts, he should be evil and not easy to deal with. Lu Shui smiled. He's now wholeheartedly focused on that miniature universe world. Even if he's a 6th rank, he might not be willing to waste time on me. If he really wants to fight, Even if I can't beat him, can I run? Master gave me the world fruit, saving me hundreds of years of bitter cultivation, and also giving me the chance to see the splendor of a high-rank heaven splitter in my lifetime. Master, my kindness is as heavy as a mountain. Now that you're in trouble, I'll naturally do my best. Chapter 4178. Yang Kai pondered for a long time before saying, "You can go, but take this with you." While speaking, he handed Lu Shui 2 space spirit beads and told her how to use them. Lu Shui nodded and received them. With this space spirit bead in hand, even if Lu Shui encountered any danger, she would have a great chance of escaping. Of course, the premise was that she operated it properly. The space spirit bead was refined by Yang Kai and could only be used in pairs. When one space spirit bead was activated, the other could ignore space barriers and instantly cross the void. Putting away the space spirit bead, Lu Shui took the initiative to leave the shadowless veil. Although the two sides were separated by 1,000 kilometers, for a mid-rank heaven opening master, this distance was nothing at all. Therefore, the moment Lu Shui's figure appeared, a tyrannical divine sense swept over from the ship 1,000 kilometers away. Lu Shui's world force fluctuated wildly, deliberately showing off her strength to attract the attention of the ship's owner. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yang Kai gritted his teeth and quietly rushed towards the demon territory with Guizian. In less than the time it takes to burn a stick of incense, the two had already arrived at the crack in the demon territory's barrier. Turning their heads, they saw Lu Shui slowly boarding the ship. Although Lu Shui was a 5th stage heaven opening master, she did not know the strength of the enemy, so rashly entering the ship of another person was taking a huge risk. If that person wanted to harm her, her situation would definitely be worrying. Knowing that Lu Shui's move was to create an opportunity for his whereabouts, Yang Kai no longer hesitated and plunged into the demon territory. From the outside, the entire demon territory looked like a huge monster fish, but the space inside was extremely vast. As soon as he entered, Yang Kai felt the world force violently shaking, and the entire demon territory seemed to be shaking. At the same time, an aura closely related to him was closely connected. That was the aura of the Avatar. The Dharmakaya was a clone of himself that entered the body of the stone mongoose. It could be said that the Dharmakaya was his clone. Just like how Yang Kai could sense the Dharmakaya from a certain distance, the Dharmakaya could also sense Yang Kai. Sensing that the main body had entered, the Avatar immediately sent out some information with its divine thought. Kai Yang thought for a moment and quickly understood what was going on. Ever since he had left behind a new devil territory. His Dharmakaya had entered it, and with the assistance of Bailey Mo and Chang Tian, the entire devil territory had been developing rapidly. Originally, everything was going well. However, half a year ago, an uninvited guest suddenly came to the periphery of the demon territory. That uninvited guest was the ship that Yang Kai had seen before. After a period of spying and investigation, the ship launched an attack on the demon territory. Of course, the Dharmakaya would not sit still and wait for death. He joined forces with Bailey Mo and Chang Tian to fight back. At the same time, he urged the rolling ship to escape. As they fought and fled, a few months passed in the blink of an eye. The true strength of the Dharmakaya, Chang Tian, and Bailey Mo was far inferior to the Kai Tian realm. However, in the devil territory, these three were equivalent to the status of the great emperors in the star world. They had the geographical advantage and could mobilize the world's power in the devil territory. They could display the strength of the lower Kai Tian realm. It was by relying on the foundation of the devil territory that the Dharmakaya and the others could deal with the enemy for such a long time. However, the enemy was also very difficult to deal with. There were too many of them. Although they had injured many of them, they could not kill any of them. On the contrary, the enemy executed the tactic of taking turns very well. When someone was injured, they immediately retreated, and their companions came to take over. Yang Kai had seen the lower Kai Tian realm escape while covered in blood. This was the situation. After all, the strength of the Dharmakaya and the others was too low. If the lower Kai Tian realm wanted to escape, they could not stop them. In the devil territory, there were 3 demon saint-level fighting forces. Therefore, the enemy always maintained 5 lower Kai Tian realm experts, showing a comprehensive suppression of them. Today the Dharmakaya could still fight. After all, he had the body of the stone mongoose and did not know exhaustion. However, whether it was Chang Tian or Bailey Mo, their mental strength was greatly exhausted, and they were already at the end of their rope. If Yang Kai did not come, the devil territory would be captured in less than a month at most. At that time, they would be fish on the chopping board, at the mercy of others. It only took a moment for Yang Kai to receive this information. After understanding the current situation of the demon domain, Yang Kai grinned. He put away the shadowless veil and revealed himself with Guizian. At the same time, he waved his hand, and a figure appeared in front of him. It was Yu Rumeng. When Rumeng appeared, she was still a little confused. She did not know why Yang Kai released her so quickly. However, she soon realized that this was the devil territory. She was also a demon saint born in the devil territory. She was recognized by the will of heaven and earth, and had a close connection with heaven and earth. As if she had noticed something wrong, Rumeng frowned. Yang Kai briefly explained the current situation in the devil territory. Rumeng's beautiful eyes were full of killing intent as she listened. Yang Kai comforted her a little, and quietly communicated with the Dharmakaya for a while. He told Rumeng and Guizian the plan. Both of them nodded seriously. The next moment, an invisible force wrapped the 3 of them. When the law of space fluctuated, the 3 of them suddenly disappeared. At the same time, in a battlefield hundreds of thousands of miles away, the Dharmakaya, Bailey Mo, and Chang Tian were separated by 5 lower-grade splitters. They were fighting desperately. The Dharmakaya was the current master of the devil territory. He had cultivated the heaven-devouring great emperor of Wukong. He was not a flesh and blood body, so he did not know pain or fatigue. Therefore he was the strongest among the 3. At this moment 2 lower-grade splitters were attacking him from left and right. The Dharmakaya roared and repeatedly urged the world force. It was difficult to tell who would win. Every time he fought with the 2 lower-grade splitters, he was fighting with his life, which made his 2 opponents frightened. On the other side, Bailey Mo was entangled by a thin woman and could not get away at all. The woman also had the cultivation of lower-grade splitters. Even if she was fighting alone, she had the advantage. After all, Bailey Mo had been fighting with the enemy for several months. She was almost exhausted. At this moment, her face was extremely pale, her body was stained with blood, and her hair was disheveled. She looked like a ghost. However, her opponent only entangled her, like a cat playing with a mouse, and consumed her strength. Compared to Bailey Mo's situation, Chang Tian's situation was extremely dangerous. Just like the embodiment, his opponents were 2 lower-grade sky splitters. These 2 lower-grade sky splitters didn't make a move, but once they made a move, it would be fatal. Chang Tian had already revealed his true form. He was a huge demonic dragon bearing its fangs and brandishing its claws. The dragon's eyes, which were bigger than a house, were bloodshot. Its sharp claws had been broken, and countless dragon scales had been knocked away. The pitch-black dragon blood was constantly dripping down. It was as heavy as 1,000 caddies, smashing huge craters on the ground. The 3 demon saint-level forces were separated. The enemy's intention was very obvious. It was nothing more than to divide and destroy them. First kill Chang Tian. After killing him, the 2 lower-grade splitters would be able to support the other side of the battlefield. At that time, whether it was the Dharmakaya or Bailey Mo, it would be difficult to resist. Chang Tian also knew that he was the key to the victory of this battle, so he also risked his life and madly burned his essence blood. The world lost its color, and the mighty force of the world collided endlessly. The surroundings of the battlefield were full of void cracks. With the battlefield as the center, the laws of heaven and earth within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles were shattered and withered. However, even if he did his best, he still could not see any hope of victory. Chang Tian's eyelids were getting heavier and heavier, and his strength was almost drying up. He did not have much lifespan left. Back then, before the demon territory was devoured, Yang Kai was stranded on the 100-spirit continent. He had taken a fancy to him and wanted to cultivate Yang Kai to be his successor. If his lifespan was not at its end, how could Chang Tian have such thoughts? He could persist until now because he was burning his life force. After this battle, whether he won or lost, he would not live for long. His mind was in a trance, and a flaw appeared in his defense. The two lower-grade splitters fighting with him had extremely sharp eyesight. Naturally, they would not miss such a good opportunity. One of them wiped his long sword with his finger, and man and sword became one. They turned into a stream of light and slashed directly at Chang Tian's chest. The sword light flashed and disappeared. Dragon scales flew, dragon blood splashed, and the long sword pierced through his chest. Chang Tian's eyes suddenly widened, and the flesh on his chest wriggled crazily, finally stopping the long sword before it pierced through his heart. The pain made him roar angrily. He raised his dragon claw and was about to claw at his chest. At this moment, the other lower-grade splitter shouted in a low voice. The long halberd in his hand danced, and he raised it high to block the huge dragon claw. The scene froze at this moment. Two people and one dragon wrestled fiercely. Chang Tian's dragon beard fluttered in the wind, and the dragon roared continuously. The fierce wind urged the world force of the demon territory. The two lower-grade splitters also knew that it was a critical moment, and they used their strength without reservation. The dragon claw that was blocked could not move, but the long sword locked in his flesh stabbed towards his heart inch by inch. Every time the long sword moved an inch, it made a creaking sound, which was extremely ear-piercing. Suddenly, Chang Tian's dragon eyes widened, and he looked behind the enemy in shock, as if he had seen an extremely inconceivable scene. His eyes, which were originally filled with despair, suddenly blossomed with an astonishing brilliance. At the same time, the two lower-grade splitters who were in a deadlock with Chang Tian felt their blood run cold, and a chill rushed from the soles of their feet to the top of their heads. When the lower-grade splitter holding the long sword hurriedly turned his head, he saw a tall and sturdy figure appear behind him at an unknown time, holding a large axe and grinning sinisterly, chopping down with the axe. This person turned pale with fright. The power of this axe was extremely fierce. Inferring from the aura of the world force, the one who attacked him was surprisingly a third-grade splitter. And he himself was only a third-grade splitter. Where did this guy come from? The aura of death enveloped him, and at the critical moment of life and death, he hurriedly pulled out his sword. But the long sword was imprisoned by Chang Tian's flesh, so how could he pull it back in such a short time? Helplessly, he could only abandon his sword and quickly form a seal with both hands, raising his hands high. The phantom of the universe world behind him flashed, and the world force fluctuated. With a loud bang, the large axe chopped down. The man's face turned pale, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He felt his Tao seal and the small universe in his body shake endlessly, and the blood in his chest roiled, making him feel nauseous. If it were under normal circumstances, he would not be so weak. After all, he was also a third-grade splitter, comparable to Guizian in strength, but under a sneak attack, how could he display his full strength? Hastily responding, not being chopped to death was already a decent response. A huge force came from the front, and he was involuntarily forced back, fiercely slamming into Chang Tian's body before bouncing back. His figure was like a fallen leaf in a storm, withering with the wind. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.